We are roped together, moving with managed rope slack, and now need to cross a crevasse. Let's discuss how we evaluate the tactics we might use based on the circumstances. Hello, I'm Jason. We are continuing our Glacier Travel series, and there's a link to the series in the description. In earlier videos, we've talked about navigating glaciers to reduce crevasse risk, and have talked about moving together as a rope team. Today, though, we're coming to a crevasse that we need to cross. Our tactics are going to depend on circumstances. As per our glacier navigation video, once we've identified a crevasse and estimated its potential shape, we want to determine if we can either round the crevasse or step over it without a belay in order to maintain speed and efficiency. If the crevasse is somewhat hidden, after probing, the leader may want to mark the crevasse with an X to help trailing climbers, or even entire other teams, notice the risk. If we've determined we can round the crevasse, we don't need to change systems. We just need to manage the slack, as we talked about in last week's video. If we need to cross the crevasse, we want to try to be perpendicular to the crevasse. If we think we can step across, we alert the team, ensure that there is enough slack behind the lead climber to not get pulled while making the big step, and ensure that the trailing climbers are ready to arrest. The crossing climber should have their axe in a rest position as well, in case it is needed. Once across, the leader and the team will keep moving until the next climber is prepared to cross. Now, if there is a third climber, that third climber needs to make sure there is enough slack to not tug back the second climber. The lead climber wants the rope tight throughout the process, and so will move in sync with the crossing second climber. Now, what if we want to belay across? This might be because a crevasse is too wide to just step across, and we are unsure of the snow bridge's integrity. As with most things in climbing, there are lots of ways to do these things, and there are lots of variables that could make any one procedure more or less effective than an alternative. We are demonstrating one set of procedures with a 3-person team to call out the considerations that go into the technique, not to say that this is the only way to do these things or that it is the best option in every situation. If we choose to belay across, then having brake knots in the rope complicates the belay. We are going to demonstrate with this factor in place because of that complication, and you can watch our video, linked in the description, on roping up to see why a 3-person team may want brake knots in some circumstances. Also, we are going to demonstrate a method where we belay directly off of an anchor piece that the belayer is also clipped into. It immediately makes a backup anchor, the person, and if conditions are slippery, a lead fall into a crevasse with no anchor could be enough to cause the belayer to slide, which risks losing control of the belay. It also has the advantage of having the load on the anchor so that the belayer can escape the belay and create a haul system should a crevasse fall happen. And you can watch our video on the 6-to-1 drop loop crevasse rescue system by following the link. However, everything has downsides. Building the anchor takes time, and it is less comfortable to belay from the anchor. So on flatter terrain with a good stance, a belay off the harness might be both faster, easier to manage, and safe enough. Climbers may also want to make sure they add prussics to the rope when needed, as they will become part of these belay procedures. Our chief concern for the belay is the risk of being unable to hold a fall. On a 2-person team, that might be all the time. On a 3-person team, things may change relative to being on an uphill slope where gravity is helping the climbers hold a fall, or a downhill slope where gravity may pull the climbers down behind a falling lead. So we will tend to belay from the side where gravity is working against holding the fall. In our first scenario, moving uphill, we are belaying the last climber to cross the crevasse. To get the leader across, we follow the same procedure as the non-belayed method we've already described. That moves the second climber across using the non-belayed procedure too, as there is still a climber below with a gravity assist when holding any fall. When the last climber reaches the crevasse, the team stops. The first climber makes sure they are tight on the second climber and plunges an axe. The second climber attaches their prusik to the anchor piece. And you can watch a video we did on basic snow anchors that has a link in the description. Note that some teams may want to have each person carry at least one piece of snow protection. Now the second climber can belay in the last climber through the anchored prusik, keeping as low as they comfortably can to avoid generating an upward pull on the anchor. The second can also remove the last climber's brake knots as they come to the prusik if that is necessary for the width of the crevasse. Assuming we are moving to normal rope team travel after the crossing, the second climber can unclip the prusik from the anchor. Either the second or third climber can pull the anchor, depending on how the team wants to manage gear and lead swaps. Now the first and second climber can start to move forward. The third climber stays in position. The second climber will be pulling slack back through their prusik and retying the third climber's brake knots at appropriate intervals. And again, you can watch our video about roping up to evaluate some of the spacing options. Once the second's rope comes tight to the last climber, we are back to standard travel. The second scenario is heading downhill, and we will want to belay the lead climber. The lead climber, if carrying the gear, can leave snow protection for the second climber to pick up as they approach the crevasse. Or, again, each climber can carry a piece of pro. The lead stops before the crevasse, while the second and third continue to descend until they create enough slack to get across the crevasse. That is done by the third staying tight on the second, while the second's generating slack through their prusik. If they need to undo brake knots to get enough slack, the second can undo each knot as it gets to the prusik. Now we can place the anchor and have the second clip in with the prusik. The third will stay tight and potentially plunge their axe as the second belays the first across. Once the first is across with all the slack back out of the system, we can pull the anchor and the team can follow normally. Once everyone is across, the lead can stop. The second can belay themselves through their prusik up to the lead, again with the third climber keeping the rope to the second in appropriate tension. Now the lead starts to move away, and the second can retie the brake knots. Earlier, we had mentioned a belay off the harness. In essence, we would follow the procedures we outlined, but simply have the end climber that is not being belayed stay tight to the second climber, who will belay with a device or a munter hitch. But again, you lose the advantages described when placing a piece of pro. In essence, there are three macro choices for crossing a crevasse: no belay, a belay off of the harness, and an anchored belay. As we consider these three methods, the trade-offs of faster but less secure to slower but more secure are real, and it is up to every team to consider what is appropriate for the risk profile of their particular situation. Like I said, there are many methods to getting safely across a crevasse. Do you have a preferred system? Tell us about it in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and share if you want to support us. For more information, you can go to our website at www.shortguysbetaworks.com. You can check out that video I mentioned from our snow series on placing snow anchors, or you can check out the rest of our Glacier Travel series. We'll see you next week and keep on getting more out of that big outside.